Every level of Nintendo greed. Explain.
Level 1, Money Grubber.
The lowest level of greed.
These are the kind of products and practices many people are fine with, but some may find these money grubby. Some may even debate in the comment section that I'm insane for calling this greedy. On this tier you have things like the first $70 game Nintendo made, Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom being $70 at the time was thought to be out of the ordinary for Nintendo, and a lot of people attacked them for selling a game at that price. But a lot of people grudgingly bought the games, as Breath of the Wild was seen as one of the greatest games of all time. Tears of the Kingdom launched with much less fanfare than Breath of the Wild, and many people saw the game as glorified $70 DLC. Then we have the normalizing of gambling with their mobile games, that their former president Iwata stated they would cease being Nintendo by releasing mobile games. Now they just make so many mobile games filled to the brim with microtransactions like Mario Kart Tour.
Pipes also had new variants called Spotlight Pipes, which contained a few Spotlight characters, carts, and gliders that were guaranteed to get within the first 100 pools of the pipe. However, those Spotlight items were only guaranteed to show up somewhere within those first 100 pools, meaning it could easily take over $100 worth of pools before you could even get one of the several featured Spotlight items. So want to place a specific reskin of a classic character? That'll be upwards of $250.
They just released another Fire Emblem mobile game with battle passes and other weird currencies as well.
Once you're done with this very short tutorial, you get thrown into the game's main menu and you get greeted by a cash shop. Any pretty egregious one at that, I will say. The game starts by offering you the Battle Pass. It's about $20 Canadian to purchase the Battle Pass to get Lyn for without any work.
Also, leaving the mobile slot behind, we have third-party games usually being the most expensive on Nintendo consoles. Before you say this isn't Nintendo, it's just the greedy third-party devs, they did create a catch-22 with third-party publishers. Either buy our overpriced 64GB cartridges, or put your games on game key cards, leading to taking heat online and not selling any copies. Overall, the worst console to buy third-party games on is Nintendo. They cost the most while running like this.
Level 2, Farmers.
A lot of people forgot this, but Nintendo had DLC at launch for Breath of the Wild, and they also did this with RPG titles like Fire Emblem Engage and Xenoblade 3. Nintendo fans constantly get milked by these practices and still defend it.
They also sold $70 to $80 cardboard with Nintendo Labo.
When the new Nintendo 3DS launched, it didn't even come with the charger. You had to buy it separately. And no, it wasn't a common charger like a micro USB or USB Type-C, so you either had to use your old 3DS charger or were forced to buy it separately. They had even more blunders in the past, and we see it with
Level 3, Old Greed.
Nintendo was dedicated to never taking a loss in hardware sales, so the 3DS launch at $250 with no real system sellers early on was so obscene and such a failure that they quickly jumped from that foolish price, and Iwata apologized
And created an ambassador program for people who purchased the console early on.
The ambassador program gave people free Game Boy Advance and NES games. Notably, the Game Boy Advance games were never available to non-ambassadors on the console throughout its entire lifespan. $250 at the time was insane for a portable console, and the value with the console, other than the novelty of 3D, just wasn't there. Nobody was piling in to play Pilot Wings. Even though it was insanely greedy at the time, they quickly learned from this mistake. So fast that Nintendo cut the price of the 3DS to $170 only 6 months after launch, so many people didn't even know about this. Also, Iwata even slashed his salary in half in order to not lay anyone off for this pricing disaster. This is one of the reasons why Iwata was remembered as a great Nintendo president, and why videos like these don't quite hit the mark. They are much more anti-consumer now than before.
It's almost like they are
Level 4. Disneyland.
Nintendo is trying their best to become one of the most anti-consumer corporations in the world.
Ever since their new president took charge and their best figureheads left us, the soul of Nintendo was lost. On this level, you have the fact that they did limited time offers of Mario 3D All-Stars just to add FOMO to buying garbage emulated ports. This is very similar to the FOMO Disney used to sell their animated movies on DVD. Also, they keep releasing these lazy ports like Skyward Sword HD and Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze for $60 when the originals were $50.
Also, later down the line for both, their price was reduced to $20 with Nintendo Selects.
When Pikmin 3 was on the board to get its re-release, Nintendo did something unbelievable. They just removed it from the eShop for the Wii U. Because it sold at Nintendo Select's price at $20, they removed it from the eShop, forcing people to pay $60 for the game instead of the $20 they would pay if they had the Wii U. Nintendo attempted this anti-consumer practice before with Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, but this listing quickly went back on eShop. Maybe they were just testing it before, but it largely went unnoticed. It's just unbelievable what they're doing in these recent days, and they're just using their legacy of nostalgia to sell you the same thing over and over. Disney may even be better than Nintendo on this aspect, because at least when they release their nostalgia, it's undoubtedly a different experience, whether for the better or worse. Nintendo just packages the same game, markets it like it's new, and then sells it for as much as a new game costs. How could they be even worse than Disney on this aspect? Their greed has gone too far, but it only gets worse from here.
Level 5. Greed Unbound.
$80 Mario Kart World, $80 Mario Party, $80 Tears of the Kingdom, $10 manual for the console, $100 plastic, $100 controllers, $125 dock. There's just so many things on this level, it's insane. There may also be things I missed on this level, so leave a comment on the most greedy thing they did in your opinion. By the way, how did Pokemon Scarlet and Violet get DLC when the games look and perform like this? How is it possible to be the biggest grossing franchise of all time and to not only make this game, but somehow make the next games look worse? How is it possible that some of the best looking DS games and some of the better looking 3DS games go on to look like this? We could say it's due to them not having enough time to create a good game. But quickly remind yourself, who's really forcing them to pump out slop title after slop title? Also, a quick question, why do people have to pay extra to use the specs of their own console via upgrade packs and Switch 2 editions? I know this company is under heat right now, but why is the only company giving free upgrades Xbox with their smart delivery program? If I bought the Switch 2 for improved frame rates and better resolution, paying even more just to be able to use those specs is stupid.
But at least if I buy a Switch 2, I own the console, right?
Level 6. C&D.
Nintendo can brick your console at any moment. You don't even own the console you spent your hard-earned money on. You own a revocable license. If Nintendo thinks you violated any of their rules,
It can and will brick your console.
Nintendo also doesn't really care about their fans. Pokemon Prism is a Pokemon fan game made by passionate fans. Most people who played the game saw the passion and talent behind the project they made.
Look at you. This is so cool. Look at these customization options, nigga. Look at these customization options.
And what did Nintendo do? Cease and desist. This is vastly different from a company like Sega, who partnered with their fans
To create one of the best Sonic games of all time.
Nintendo is also attempting to patent out their competition instead of making good games. You can see this with their latest unusual attempt to patent summoning.
Yes, that summoning, the one that WoW, SMT, or even Elden Ring for goodness sakes use. This level is just the amalgamation of actions Nintendo did to actively harm the whole gaming industry. But what could possibly be worse than this?
Level 7. Legal.
Nintendo's legal team is the worst part of the company. These next two stories that completely went under the radar will show why. In the first story, Nintendo sued Super Mario. Yes, really, Super Mario. A Costa Rican family-owned supermarket
Came under fire after trying to renew their trademark. The trademark itself didn't even have any resemblance to Nintendo. I mean, just look at it. Nintendo of America's legal team attempted to attack the small grocery store just because of its name. The owner of the supermarket, because of the mere stature of Nintendo, considered backing down and changing the name. How could a small family grocery store even compete in a legal battle against one of the biggest corporations in the world with the best and most world-class lawyers in the world?
However,
The great news is that Nintendo actually lost this case and refuses to make any public acknowledgement of it. This was a true David and Goliath story. Coming up is the most insane story about Nintendo's legal team. A hacker named Namod, who led the 3DS homebrewing scene, was closely monitored by Nintendo. Not just monitoring his behavior online, they were closely watching his home to learn everything they could about him. Nintendo had their ninjas watch Namod for weeks, learning his place of employment, who he associated with, who he lived with, where he went, his daily activities, his work schedule. They knew everything. Nintendo then discussed a plan to aggressively pursue and interrogate Namod into quitting the hacking scene completely.
they had an entire flowchart on how the conversation should proceed as well.
And Namod is just one of many people to be aggressively watched and pursued by Nintendo. What? Breaking news? I'm hearing that Doug Bowser retired? Okay, maybe things could get a bit better, but who's replacing him?
So we worked with Devin for a very long time. She started out on the legal team, actually. She was leading the legal team.
Never mind.